Hello, welcome to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at DiabloIncGamers.com, not the other website you thought we worked on, Neinball, because you lied to me. It's full of lies. I'm joined tonight, I'm your host, Flux. I am joined on the show tonight by Neinball.
Oh, hi.
And by N3rdwords.
Hello.
We haven't done a podcast in a few weeks because I've been on heroin. And we are going to cover lots of recent game changes. There's been lots of changes on the PTR, and the legendary items are getting buffed, and Blizzard apparently no longer hates monks, although I'm sure that will come back. And there was a whole thing about the plot recently and Black Soulstone stuff, and Neinball jumped out of his chair 3 times and did a backflip. He was so eager to talk about that. I think his head spun like the girl in The Exorcist.
With vomit included.
And we'll probably... She should have been vomiting while she did that. I've been like a water park ornament. Really world's worst water park. Don't pee and soup in the water. And we're going to talk about other stuff. Greater rifts. How everybody thinks the stash is too small, much like my ex-wife. And the Paragon 1000 was achieved. I think Neinball's in the 970s, so you're pretty close to that one, right?
Oh, so close. So close.
Yeah, I'm almost there. If you added up all your characters' levels, would you get to 1,000?
No.
Including your Paragon points. Yeah, me either. How about you, N3rdwords?
Not even close.
What is your highest Paragon achievement?
I'm at 316 now on live.
Is that on hardcore, or are you play up?
I don't play hardcore. I did in D2. I save it for when I get bored.
Is he allowed on a podcast if he doesn't play hardcore?
I know.
I thought that was a requirement.
Well, he doesn't live in Florida, so that we make exceptions.
Oh, yeah.
And what is your Paragon level, Neinball? Are you above or below 600?
Below.
Yeah, me too. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
We don't need to cut that off.
We will leave it at that and not be depressed.
It's like pricing in a really weird store. You just ran everything to 600, above or below. And so anyway, some guy got to Paragon 1000, and he was live streaming it, and we posted, and that was in the news a few weeks ago. Actually, last week I guess it was. And the next day I was watching him while I was writing the post. I had his stream on, and he was at like 999.27 or something, right? And by the time I posted it and did a couple of emails and stuff, and I looked, and he was at like 999.36. Just kind of estimating by where the bars were. I'm like, this is not going to take that long. He's gone up almost a tenth of a Paragon level in like 45 minutes. So. And pretty much by that night, the next night he was at Paragon 1000. And I checked his stream the next day, and he was at Paragon 1000. And it's like, now streaming World of Warcraft Land of Pandaria. So I'm like, I guess he had his fill.
You retired.
Go back.
Yeah, so
you go back to the other Panda.
Yeah, Paragon 1000, you can play something else now, right, Neinball?
Yeah, I guess it's allowed at that point.
You went to the Florida of Diablo.
Like it's the China of Diablo. And has he played World of Warcraft Pandaland more recently than you have, Neinball? Are you still boycotting?
Not so much boycotting, but yeah, not playing.
Just waiting for the expansion?
Pretty much.
Oh, well, glad you took that point and ran with it. That's another man in the business.
Oh, we could talk about WoW if you want to.
Well, only if we're making horrible insults about it.
Have you seen the opening cinematic?
For what?
The Warlords of Draenor. They debuted it over at Gamescom.
I know nothing about it, no. That's new, right?
Yes.
Is it a real cinematic or just one of those in-game things?
It's that thing that we did not get at the ending of Reaper of Souls.
You mean a story?
That's where all the budget went.
Both?
Was it just Tyrael whining about stuff for 5 minutes while black and white illustration? Yeah, so it's actually a full CGI thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. The last thing I saw of World of Warcraft was the one with the panda guy when he was jumping around at the start of that, kicking the hell out of the human and the orc, so...
Mm-hmm.
Does it make you want to start playing World of Warcraft?
I mean, I pretty much... The guild that I play with, we are a WoW guild as well. Only because it took 12 years for Diablo 3 to come out and I needed something to do. So basically when Warlords goes live, I'll jump in and probably play a little PvP, but Diablo's still my baby.
Oh.
So any amazement on the whole Paragon 1000 thing? I mean, obviously it was kind of... I think you were the one talking to Neinball some weeks ago. We were talking about why does no one care about leveling up anymore in Diablo 3? And we're like, because there's no Paragon 100 to shoot for. But obviously there's a Paragon 1000 to shoot for. Is that that's just such a gigantically, ridiculously long thing that no one really cares? Or
I think at that point, yeah, it's just kind of like trying to get... it's like even worse than 99. It's even more grinding than... and not really all that... After 800, there's really no benefit to it. You get 5 main stat every level. You don't get your skill points. You don't get better crafting or anything like that. I guess the biggest thing that I see from it, from the first 1,000, a lot of those people that are up there or have since also reached 1,000 is just their gear. Like some of them is just like ridiculous, like beyond ridiculous.
Well, you play 400,000 hours, you probably find a few things, right?
Yeah, talking like what was it? There was a witch doctor that had it was 13 million toughness and something around like I want to say like 1.8 million damage, and that was
Jeez.
just that. Yeah, and that's just their character sheet, not even counting for talents and set bonuses.
Yeah, so it's a character sheet that tells us absolutely nothing about what their actual character is like in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, because useful.
It's
Yeah, I was
it's not as bad as the LCS of D2.
Yeah, I mean, at least there's some accurate display in Diablo 3. You just
Yeah.
have to kind of go in game or else look on websites or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do now on the PTR. They have a hover for elemental damage and elite damage. I mean, it doesn't actually bake it out right into your main DPS, but you can actually see those stats now.
Mm-hmm.
I keep forgetting constantly what's actually in the live game and what's on the PTR because it's been so long on the PTR. Like all the news from like 3 months is just PTR, and I keep thinking, oh, this must be in the game by now. It's like, nope, it's not.
JK.
So you said you played both Nerdwords. Did you notice you went back to the regular? You're like, where are all those new features? Why aren't they here?
Yeah, I'm running a meteor build on my wizard right now, and I went over to the PTR with all the buffs that went on with it, and I was lucky enough to get Tal set on PTR, of really good rolls that I didn't have on live, and I messed around with it for a little while, and it was really really nice. Still needs some tuning, but the damage was definitely a noticeable increase, and then. Like after a while, I found something I can't remember. Oh, I found a serpent sparker that rolled up to like 2400 DPS, which is for those that don't know the Hydra wand. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is that thing that happens with every game where I play the PTR and I get stoked and I'm messing with stuff and then I go, wait, I'm gonna have to do this again, and I just won't find it for months. So I'm just gonna go back to live and just forget that this ever happened. And I went back to live, and it was. I miss it, but I was just waiting on 2.1 to come out because I'm ready to run these seasons.
And you go back to live, and you've got half the DPS and less everything, none of the good gear you just found.
Yeah.
And your meteor skill is doing 247% less
I
weapon damage or something.
When I don't have towels on live, I mean I do, but like my towels chest is a level 60 towels chest that I found when 2.0 went over and Reaper wasn't even out yet. So I was using that just to get the bonus. So like. I don't know. I'm really ready for 2.1 because Meteor's nice.
Soon.
Yeah, TM.
I think we are going to get it. Not that because they've posted a couple of recently. They posted a whole blog thing about Greed's domain, and then they just did one. Even I'm saying Greed instead of Greed. And then they did the one just about seasons a couple days ago. So it seems like they wouldn't roll those out unless that was kind of coming soon because that's for like the general fans, not the fan site followers so much who already know about all this stuff.
Well, I feel like they're prepping us for the seasons, but I feel like they're going to give us more notice than that. I mean, with it being seasons and stuff, I feel like they would have that kind of scheduled for us to know when the start date was, because they have to know that it's going to be like Diablo 2 Ladders, where we're going to wait for that day one and just jump in.
Yeah, they have said that seasons won't necessarily start at the beginning of 2.1 and probably will not start. So I'm guessing that they'll give it a little bit of time. Before they actually implement seasons after the patch hits. But they have said that their goal is to try and get it out by the end of August.
See, and
which
that's
I guess is sometime over the next 2 weeks.
And that's awesome, but like I really want seasons to go live with 2.1 as much as possible, because like for those of the people that are going to play seasons, there's literally no reason to play the game right now. Like, because nothing from my character is going to roll over 2 seasons. I can't play PTR and get cool stuff in seasons, because if I don't get it once the season goes live, I'm be irritated. So you're stuck in this place where it's like, yeah, I can play live, but I'm getting really like feudal Paragon points that aren't going to matter because they're not going to be part of my season characters anyways. So then if 2.1 goes live and I start finding all this stuff and like building my characters up, and I still can't, it's just, I'm ready for seasons to start.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a lot of changes in patch 2.1. Maybe they want to give people a week or so.
No,
to
they
get used
totally
to those
do.
and try them out before they go to seasons.
Right, no, and I know I'm being impatient, but I just want seasons to start. I mean, I know they've got to fix a lot of stuff still, and they're still trying to tune some stuff, but I'm just really excited for it.
You've been a Blizzard fan for how many years? Fan of Blizzard video games?
Since 21 almost. And
you're still impatient?
I mean,
haven't you learned that impatience is that way lies madness?
Yeah, pretty much. But I don't know. I didn't know I wanted it that bad. Like everyone talked about bringing ladders or seasons or whatever to Diablo 3, and I was like, I mean, like it was fun in Diablo 2, but it was kind of just a way to like keep a game that had no end game have a point to play. And with like this and jumping in and like doing the achievements and stuff and like the greater rifts, like it actually kind of feels like an end game now. It kind of feels like you finish the game and it's like, okay, now like I have something to do. like to work towards, and it's kind of nice. Even the small like amount that we've gotten it so far.
And if you're a Paragon 1000, at least you can get new Paragon points.
Yeah.
That actually add more than 5 vitality for each one.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, I wanted to find out from the guy doing it if what did he put his Paragon 1000 point into? Did he put it into vitality or strength, or whatever? It's like, ooh, it's a big difference.
Yep.
I guess he probably has enough vitality at this point. Probably going for more damage, because I mean, 5 more dexterity when you've got 9,700 already is probably really a big difference.
Yeah. Well, I believe he was a softcore player, so I don't think any of his points were into vitality at all.
Exactly. It's only like 80% of people play the game are softcore, so we should probably keep insulting them as much as possible.
Yeah.
And 1/3 of the podcast participants are softcore, so there you go.
I love that you guys just assume that there's no EHP considered into anything with softcore players. It kills me.
No, of course not. It's all just about you just buy your
Just
characters from
damage,
Chinese gold
damage.
farmers, and then you just play. Yeah.
It still sucks to
stand there
die,
and
just
the
not
world.
nearly as much.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes like almost like what 5 or 10 seconds to run back to your corpse.
Yeah.
So it's a real struggle.
Life is so hard.
It is. It's the hardest.
So there've been lots of buffs to legendary items. I mean, they've put them in the patches and they put them in each individual PTR update. I like the change to Reinhardt, where now it's over 9,000. Whatever, it's 10,000 weapon damage from Reinhardt, which is a nerf. It's kind of hard to imagine that. Like, think of your other gear in the game, like skills and items. If they went to 10,000 weapon damage, you'd be like, yeah, that's a nerf. That sucks. It's like that's like, most of your stuff has like 150 weapon damage, and it's like, yeah, 10,000's more, but shows you how good it was before that, right? So, have you guys seen all these weapon changes and item changes? And it seems like Blizzard's kind of at least listening to what the fans want, and they're trying to buff the monk and other stuff. Obviously, there's still complaints, right? But anything that you're in Neinball looking for your favorite character, you've seen item changes, and I want this so much more than what I have now in the live game.
Well, being maining a demon hunter, the nerfs to Reinhardt and Furnace just make me think, well, cry more. I never got to use it, so no one gets to use it. But I think it was really needed because every single group that was going through and doing the high tier greater rifts, they were just using Reinhardts and Furnaces. There wasn't any choice.
After Exploding Palm was nerfed, at least.
Yeah, even when before Exploding Palm was
Exploiting Palm.
Yeah, Exploiting Palm. But they, it's just they were holdover mechanics that people complained about all the way back in the Reaper Souls beta. This is the reason why they got rid of Crushing Blows, and yet they decided to keep the one weapon of Crushing Blow and something with an instant kill mechanic. Obviously, with how much they're scaling the monster, HP up and 80 plus, doesn't surprise it took them this long to change it.
Yeah, Greater Rift seemed to have really brought a focus to anything that was overpowered in that way, where you can suddenly get monsters that have billions and billions of hit points. And if you have weapons that are doing monster % damage, it's just outrageous. Or skills, like Exploiting Palm, which is just the most perfect name ever, isn't it?
Yeah.
At least we have. How about you, Nerdwords? Any item changes that you're really excited about?
I mean,
all the ones you found on the PTR and we'll never ever find again in a real game.
Yeah, exactly. No, the nerfs, I'm glad they happened because it was, I mean, like he said, it was pretty much just a min-maxing thing at this point because everyone that was wanting to get up high in the greater rifts, you were just going to have to use that. That was pretty much your best choice, if not your only choice. But I don't know. I feel like it's good to see them actually making progress with monks, but it's still not enough. Like they've still got to address like internal cooldowns and more spenders, and I don't know. I feel like the monk alone is going to keep 2.1 a good couple months away, like with the rate at which they're trying to fix it. Like they just aren't doing enough at a time.
Yeah, they would never launch a patch or a game when all the characters weren't perfectly balanced.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if we are waiting for at least some semblance of balance among the classes for 2.1 and seasons to go live, then literally, I feel like the monk is the redheaded stepchild.
I have to reject the entire proposition of your argument. Since when have we ever waited for anything in terms of balanced characters in Diablo 3?
Well, I mean, obviously, the testing that's going on and the changes that are going on. Like, Monk got hit really hard with the changes, whereas Wizard didn't really get touched a whole lot, like with this last iteration, because the Wizards are getting into a better spot, at least, and they have at least some more viable builds. But monks are still dragging behind, and I feel like they're at least trying to appease them and like bring it up to par, at least semi. At least, I mean, nothing's ever going to be balanced. Let's be real, but it could be closer. And if that's what they're waiting on, I mean, what else are they waiting on? Like, they've gotten the rollover test. They could do another rollover test if they wanted to. But it's really just trying to make the classes okay to go into the first season, I feel like.
I think as far as balance goes, that there's always going to be degrees of variance. You're never going to have anything balanced to even a dull razor, let alone a razor's edge. But I don't know. I haven't seen that much or been reading the forums too much to know the position that monks are in at the moment after all the buffs they've been receiving with the past 3 patch updates. So I don't know. I don't know where
most
they're
monk
at.
fans are still pretty much a martyr's cause.
Yeah, it's.
Gotcha.
I mean, they upped the damage on Shenlongs to 1200%, but the internal cooldown is still 3 seconds, so it's still not really.
No, they changed that.
Oh.
That was fixed like 2 days ago.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, I missed that. Well, that's great.
Yeah, John Yang, the lid monk designer, posted and said they cut it to it's like 1.6.
Oh, that's good.
He posted in that big thread that the MVP Druin had posted about.
Well, good. Maybe seasons will come faster. No, I know that balance is like a
Yeah, you're like, well, season's tomorrow.
Right,
We can
yeah.
start now.
No, I know it's like a wishy-washy
well.
thing, but where the monks are right now and the outcry even from the MVP, monk, I feel like they've got to do something to because no one's going to play monks in seasons, and they don't want that, surely. I don't know. I feel like they're trying to at least somewhat balance that because they're focusing on that more than anything else, that and the gems. They're not really focusing on achievements and leaderboards and stuff because that's going pretty well. So, but that said, I really wish that they would address Hydra really bad. But there's also kind of a tinfoil hat thing going on that the Hydra bugs are kind of on purpose right now. Have you guys heard this at all?
You're the wizard advocate, so tell us about the whole Hydra
Okay,
situation.
so Hydra doesn't work. It does good damage, but
Did you just watch Captain America 2 last night, by the way?
Captain America, what?
Hail
hi-
Hydra.
It was all about Hydra and Captain
yeah.
America 2. I just saw that last night, actually.
Yeah.
So anyway, carry on.
that was a good flick. But no, the Hydra bug, okay, so Mammoth Hydra and Blazing Hydra, the 2 Fire Hydras, are kind of with the new Firebird set change and the way that the damage stacks the dot and all that, Hydra and Gale Force is a really powerful build, but Hydra right now is not proccing coefficients, and it's not proccing the Hydra set or the Firebird set at all. So there's a rumor going around that they basically turned off Hydra so that we would test something else on the PTR because it was above and beyond amazing to run that build. Just basically dropping Hydras, throwing tornadoes, and running in circles. And yeah, so everyone's wanting to get in and try it and use their Serpent Spark and stuff. And it's still effective, it still works well, but you're having to run Molten Impact or something to get your percentage damage up on your Firebird's dot. It's kind of wonky right now. And it's kind of weird that it's so wonky because Hydra has always had problems and they just can't seem to fix all the bugs at one time.
Any comment, Neinball? Do you care about wizards?
Nope.
Not so much. Nope,
Sorry.
not so much. How about the Red Skull? Do you care about the Red Skull?
Yeah, it was
Because he was the founder of Hydra, so he must be having opinions on this.
played by Hugo Weaving. He's one of my favorite actors.
Yes. Is there a character he hasn't played who wears a mask and has a strong voice in a movie? No, he's not.
He wasn't Vader. So there's that.
He was 7 years old when Star Wars came out. But maybe in the
I'm
next
pretty sure Hugo
they were making
Weaving is eternal. So
that. Always has been, always will be.
Always will be.
Okay, we'll get to the story stuff. I know you guys have been sharpening your knives. Or maybe you might like it. Who knows? So like 3 weeks ago, there was a live stream, and Lebo and one of the other story guys were on it talking about answering questions from fans on Twitter, and somebody tweeted them a question.
And there was some other person on that stream with them that had an incredibly sexy voice. I don't remember who it was, though.
I honestly don't know. Was that you on that?
Yes, it was.
yeah.
I only saw a quote of it. Well, you ought to be the expert on what happened then. I just saw quotes of it as this is the streamer. No one mentioned who the streamer was. So you were there when the ultimate sin occurred.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us what happened? So someone asked him what happened was when Diablo died at the end. Is Diablo free or the other Primevals free? Basically, right? That's pretty much what the question was.
Yeah, it was pretty much, it's the question was, is Diablo the Primeval free or the Seven Lords of Hell free? And the way that they answered it was, if in fact Diablo's soul is free from the Black Soulstone, they left that nebulous. Even though everyone
What the hell else would it be?
Yeah, it's everyone pretty
There's
much
no
just
more Black
assumed.
Soulstone.
Exactly, it's been shattered, so it's well, he's free. Why are you saying maybe? But yeah, so now Diablo's soul is free, and they're just commenting that it would be free as the Primeval. So all the Seven Lords of Hell are still, kind of silly puttied into Diablo.
And they're not free, so we don't have Malthael and Belial and Malthael.
Yeah, so it's just Diablo
Mephisto,
as
etc.
just Diablo as the Primeval.
And the other one's Andariel and whoever else, the fat worm guy, the rest of them, Duriel.
Duriel.
They haven't gone back to hell, and they're not running around happily again. They're all still stuck together.
Yeah, they're all still stuck together in Diablo.
And that didn't seem like that was... People were like, okay, wait, what? How can Diablo... If he can only control them because of the Black Soulstone, how can he still control them when there's not a Black Soulstone? Apparently they're all just sort of wedged together in a big blob. Basically like driving to the beach in a station wagon when you were a little kid. And there's like 10 kids in the back of the station wagon. They're all just sort of in this one blob. They're just sort of fighting, and you see arms coming out every now and then.
They actually kind of do work that way, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so now people have Volvos that don't have station wagons because they weren't butch enough.
I think the outcry and like the people freaking out on the forums for it, I don't think they even understand this. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but there's like a minority of people that think that that's just like the end of the other evils, and I understand where the way they communicated it could say that, but I feel like a lot of people don't know the origin story of like Sanctuary and know that we all came from one thing anyways, like that everything came from Anu and thus Tathamet, which was the seven-headed demon, so they all were one giant demon at one point that broke apart, and the idea of them all being combined again could make for a really interesting sequel that had us actually fighting Tathamet, which is like, that would be righteous. So
you're getting Old Testament there, though.
I know. And see, a lot of people don't know that, so I just wish that read a couple books before we start screaming about stuff, because it could be a really good thing.
You don't even
think the guys writing Diablo 3 have actually read those books as well?
Potentially. I think
maybe.
So.
Hopefully.
Potentially.
Let's go hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what happened like 3 weeks ago, and then this week, just recently, someone asked in the forums how can they all still be in? How could all the other demons, Andariel and Duriel and the other ones from Diablo 2 who died 20 years ago, have been in the Black Soulstone? And the new Diablo 3 community manager, formerly Diablo IINet staff writer, what the hell is his name? Tyvaliel.
Yeah,
Tyvalier.
Something like that.
He chose that himself, by the way. It wasn't forced upon him, so he has no one to blame but himself.
Yep.
He actually could have stayed Waterfiend. He told me that there was. You can keep that if you want, but I'm like, that would have been way too easy to spell for a Blizzard community manager, so that wasn't allowed. He had no. I need something with lots of more vowels. Anyway, he did this whole thing. Looking at his post, Adria marks the souls of the 5 defeated lords of hell. This creates hooks so that when the Black Soulstone is later completed, their souls will be pulled into the Soulstone, and the cries of metcon rang forth. Now, you guys who have actually read the old days with the glass dragon spines forming the universe and stuff, the Old Testament stuff. Did the whole hooks sucking in demons from 20 years ago with Andariel, with Adria doing it, is that totally metconning, retconning, or did you buy that? Do you think that's reasonable?
I mean, I'm pretty positive. It's. I mean, I don't know of any literature that was in, right?
Well, it was in the Book of Tyrael.
Right, which came out after Diablo 3 was already out. I mean, before Diablo 3, that was not in anything. Yeah, that was definitely something they decided.
Well, they made it up recently, but does it seem consistent to you with what?
I'm okay with it. I love it, but but it's just, it is what it is.
It's somewhat consistent with the things that they've made, where the demons, after they've been killed, their soul kind of lingers on for a little while, in the area. That's why you have things that are possessed or kind of an area of evil. Even though, because the demon was killed there, a little bit of its, soul or something is imprinted on that area. And then in the Book of Tyrael, it just flat out says that's what happens.
Yeah.
So you feel this development is consistent, and Adria was just sort of, kind of like Marius was the lead, the narrator of the Diablo 2 cinematics, but never did anything in the game. Like, if he could follow your character around and be in all these tombs, okay, maybe Adria is like creeping around behind you, and she's actually much more powerful than we realized. I mean, and she's doing this magical stuff, and obviously obviously none of this was in Diablo 1, which would have been kind of interesting if Adria had like some sort of sinister dialogues. Instead of just being mysterious, if she was actually seemed like maybe she was a little bit evil. Yeah. Like, unlike Word, who actually was the real evil of Diablo 1.
The townspeople in Tristram did actually lead you to believe that she was evil. Like, I mean, it was kind of more like their way of like just putting that stereotype, I think, or that cliche into the game, where you have that outcast witch who does all the magic, and that's where you go to get all your magic stuff. But like, it really, like, when they put that into Diablo 3, I was like, that's actually really kind of cool, because in that game, whenever I was 8 years old when I played Diablo 3, and Adria was creepy to me. Like, I was like, whatever. I liked my warrior.
Diablo 1.
Yeah, I know, right? Forever again.
Diablo 1. No, you said Diablo 3.
Oh, yeah, Diablo 1.
I'm like, wow, you have a really deep voice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, incredibly deep voice.
So you were 8 years old in 1997.
Yes.
Yeah, so in 1997, you were 8 years old or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so it's just like whenever I went whenever I would go over to Adria, she was mortifying. I mean, she was like pale and weird, and everyone in town hated her. I mean, mind you, I was literally a kid playing through the game, but it was cool to see like her character evolve in Diablo 3 the way it did, and for them to say the stuff they did, even if it is kind of a metcon. I'm an avid reader of comics though, and that just happens, guys. Like when you have stories that are 20 years old, like they change stuff. It's gonna happen. If you're into nerdy things, it's just something we should accept at this point.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think the whole Prince Aiden thing was pretty smart. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it's, I mean, Metcon doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, you know. I mean,
Right.
there are retcons, and I mean, you can think of better stuff. I mean, I know I've talked to Max Schaefer and Eric Schaefer and Dave Revick personally about the Diablo story. They spent like 7 seconds on the Diablo game story. They had no interest in story. They were programmers and artists. You know, all the story stuff was Metz and other people at Blizzard who kind of fleshed it out. The reason the Diablo 1 is such an awesome manual and those cool lore books is because they had zero story in the game. It was just, they had atmosphere in the game.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have story.
It had a feel.
So, I mean, it's not, Metcon is Metconning himself. You know, he was one of the guys who made up a lot of the stuff in the old days.
Yeah.
And Diablo 2, they fleshed out the story tremendously, and then I have a lot more between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. So
that's one thing
it's
that
not
I
like there
always
was
found.
this.
Yeah,
it's not as though there was this amazing source document that was this, you know, incredibly detailed, knowledgeable guide, and any deviations from it are an evil sin. Sorry, go ahead, Neinball.
I was just gonna say, is like everyone is like, oh, Chris Metzen, you know, he's fucked up the story now that Blizzard North is out of the picture. It's just like he's the one that, you know, he pretty much is like almost solely responsible for all the story in Diablo.
Yeah, didn't they send the finalized game to them to do, and Chris Metzen was penned the whole thing?
Yeah, it wasn't quite that much of a one-way. I mean, there was more of an interaction. I think they had some basic ideas of it at Blizzard North. I mean, they just sort of the mood and the theme and the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't do much of the story, and they didn't really have a writer until Diablo 2. So
yeah, no, I've the hooks and the demons thing is definitely something that they attached later, but that's also a theme that they've kept through the novels and the lore and the story of the game, and the idea of just surviving evil rather than defeating evil has always been what drew me to Diablo. So the idea that they can kind of band together, disassemble, reassemble, like, is always what pulled me to the game, because it's something that's literally never ending, and it's kind of the way the game plays too. It's cyclical. So I don't know. I've always really, really enjoyed Diablo for that reason.
Right.
In the lead up to Diablo 3, they mentioned the story that this is sort of the end of the trilogy, and that they're obviously the expansion packs continue the story, but they don't want to just have Diablo 4 set like 10 weeks later and then something else happens, right? It seemed like they wanted these to be sort of self-contained, and it didn't seem like we're moving towards that. You know, I mean, I guess Diablo 3 we had the whole invasion of heaven, and that got smashed up.
Yeah,
and then now we have the events of Malthael, and it's like that's not leading towards any real conclusion. And now Diablo, we say, is still around as a primeval. I guess they're trying to establish that these demons and angels actually can be killed. They're not just eternal spirits.
Well, I'm hoping personally that they're not trying to tie up, like, I feel like they're trying to tie up loose ends more than they're trying to give closure on things, because like with Malthael, like that was going back to Diablo 2 and like figuring out, what happened with this character, and he left, he just abandoned his post. It was cool to see them bring that back and like tell us what happened with one of the Angiris Council, but to go back into like, I don't know, their whole like never-ending battle, I guess that kind of just depends on how much they plan on doing with Diablo. Like, I hope it's a series that goes on forever, so if that's the case, then I don't need anything to close. Give me just more.
That whole thing about Diablo 3 kind of like wrapping up the trilogy, I believe that's something it was either Leonard Boyarsky said, or it was something that Jay Wilson said, like a year or two before launch of D3, and it was never mentioned again since then.
Okay. See, because that's the one thing that worries me, is like those comments where you think that Diablo 3 might be the last of them, and it's like there's so much more they could do.
Well, the reason why I go through and say that is because there's some other things that Metzen said prior to launch. So talking about the story of Diablo 3 is going to focus a lot on the World Stone, and then it's gotten one sentence of mention.
Yeah, nothing at all.
Sold. And that was something that Brian Kindergan, who's the lead writer, mentioned at one point, was going and talking about that when Chris Metzen said that is where they were taking the story, but then it didn't work out, and so they kind of came back and changed things around. And so at the time that those comments were made about D3 being like the wrapping up of this kind of storyline, there was a major change in how they wanted to progress the story and the narrative that they wanted to do. So I don't know if that's the case anymore, because it kind of that might that might have gotten thrown out the window, and they've gone a completely different direction from when those comments were made.
How much time elapses in the entire World of Warcraft and expansions? Is it they're all like 6 months apart in real time, or is there bigger jumps than that?
Usually a couple years, right?
It changes from expansion to expansion.
But they're not like 10 years later. They're relatively close.
They're relatively close. Like Cataclysm is almost immediately after Wrath of the Lich King, but between like the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, it was like a year.
Have they ever mentioned they're heading towards a conclusion or anything, or they're just going to keep cranking out X packs as long as someone will pay for them?
I think they just keep cranking it out.
Yeah, they're going to keep cranking them out because there's certain things that are like kind of like the end times within the Warcraft lore. You have like the big bad who has not even really been mentioned or anything that you've done like touch close to that. It was
in several expansions too.
Maybe, yeah, hinted at maybe a little bit in Pandaland with the Burning Legion, but it's like it's not going to be in this next expansion. So it's going to be another expansion before they even touch that, and then there's also all these other things that they could do. So it's very long time. But then EverQuest, I just want to mention something about EverQuest. They had their Planes of Power expansion back in 2002. That when you defeated the Plane of Time, it actually rolled credits. That was the end of the story. And now here they are, like 15 expansions later.
Yeah, right.
So
I think that with World of Warcraft, unlike Diablo, there is that big bad that if we got an announcement that Sargeras was going to be an expansion, then we know that that's pretty much it. Like, there's not really a whole lot left after we take him down. So with Diablo, though, like, that doesn't exist. Like, there's nothing, because, I mean, no matter how many times you kill Diablo, he just reforms in his own layer of hell. Like, same with any of the demons and any of the lieutenants and whatever. And, the Angiris Council, a new one's just born. So that's why I've always liked Diablo, because it's that ebb and flow.
And that's why it would make a perfect MMO. Just throwing it out.
It would totally agree. Completely agree.
Well, as we know, they were going to make that, and then World of Warcraft was coming along, and Blizzard said they couldn't do it. It's the same reason we don't have Diablo 3 PvP Arena, because they were making a Heroes of the Storm, and said you can't do it. So basically everything awesome in Diablo is ruined by other Blizzard games.
Or just becomes another Blizzard game.
And that's my conspiracy theory, and I'm sticking to it.
So Titan was actually going to be the Diablo MMO, and they scrapped it?
No, that was long since, beforehand. That's all Jay Wilson's fault, by the way. No one's quite sure how or why, but probably is.
Blame it on the wheel man.
So the question I have about the story is that, I actually would like it if Diablo 4 was totally different. I mean, set in the Sin War, or set 100 years in the future or whatever, instead of just more of the same stuff. The thing I'm wondering is kind of the power creep. I mean, so you have Diablo 3, and Diablo becomes so strong he can destroy heaven and kill all the angels, and you kill him. And then in the expansion, Malthael becomes so powerful he can consume all the souls of the dead ever existing and overrun all the angels and the demons. And then you kill him. Now what's next? I mean, is Godzilla going to come out of the ocean?
I'm really glad you asked
awesome.
that. Didn't you post an article about this or something recently?
Yeah.
Okay,
that
I'm
was
glad
my
you
comments
asked this because I read this and I was like, okay, so there's a really easy fix for that, and actually Neinball just mentioned it. Is
demon and angel auction house.
No, I mean one.
They can finally get good gear and compete.
I'm about to go off the deep end here, but there is the original Nephilim. There is Bulkathos and
Rathma.
Yeah, Rathma, and that's just two of the coolest ones. But they also haven't addressed. I mean, if they found a way to make Trag'Oul become like something that has to stop the out of control Nephilim, who is the dragon of balance in the universe too. Like that's another option. Or they bring people and things back all the time. So if they somehow brought back Odyssean to recreate the World Stone, or retweak the World Stone to take away the Nephilim's powers, or I mean, there's literally a thousand things that come off the top of my head that would be more powerful than Malthael on super demon juice because you could just write it. I mean, there's a lot of ways they could go with it, and a lot of really cool ways. I mean, they haven't touched on like Mephisto's family, his son and daughter, and like they haven't touched on the Sin War at all, really. I mean, any of those characters popping into the game would be really cool for those of us that do read the books.
So it's not that the current characters are the most powerful things in history of forever. Humans were much weaker during the World Stone, and now they're getting stronger as they were back in the old days.
Odyssean literally just changed the World Stone with like a thought. Like he was so powerful that he tweaked the World Stone to allow the Nephilim to exist. Like even Baal couldn't do that, and was trying to taint it, and Tyrael had to destroy it. So that being said, Tyrael unleashed the Nephilim again, and I feel like another version of Birthright happening would be really cool, because Odyssean, I mean, for those of you that don't know the Sin War...
That being one of the Diablo novels.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Sin War trilogy. If you haven't read the Sin War trilogy, spoiler alert, but at the end, when the way it concludes is with Odyssean sacrificing himself to basically keep the Nephilim under wraps so that they don't get out of control and thus have to be killed by the Angiras Council. It's basically the only way they can stop Sanctuary from ending. And I don't know, finding a way to like turn our story now into Birthright again, where the Nephilim are rising up and they're getting more and more powerful, and we're killing Diablo and all the 7 evils, and then Malthael with all of the 7 evils. I feel like they could really build that story up and have us be, even with the ending to the game. I mean, what they say at the end of the game with, the will of the Nephilim, like what will we do with this power that we have? So I don't know. I don't know if they're actually going that way, but it seems like they could. That might just be my inner nerd getting excited.
Speaking of nerds getting excited, we should probably get off the story topic here pretty shortly. But any final thoughts, Neinball?
Yeah, just
I
to
can hear
kind
the
of
min-maxers the min-maxers clicking off the podcast.
Yeah.
I can hear them all from here.
just to kind of go with what he was saying is just one way that they could do it is just with what Tyrael said at the end of Reaper of Souls is we are getting too powerful. It's like should we be trusted with this much power? And it could be something along the lines of going back and bringing the World Stone into the picture in order to kind of put that limiter back on humanity. Not take us all the way back to just regular humans, but kind of limit our power for our own sake and allow us to kind of grow into it instead of just all of a sudden it's like some kid wakes up, going through puberty and he finds out that he can blow up the whole town, type thing.
That's the plot of every X-Men movie, by the way.
You could even have the next expansion or it'd have to be the next game, it wouldn't be the next expansion, where we roll new characters to like somehow recreate or rebuild the World Stone to stop the Nephilim who've gotten out of control. Essentially stopping our characters from Diablo 3, which would be really cool.
Sounds like somebody wants a job at Blizzard writing story. Anyway,
Diablo too much to write about it.
Only on podcasts. You just dictate it. You just throw out the grand vision. It's for the little people can flesh out the details.
There you go.
Exactly. So another recent topic of some angst is stash size. There's another stash tab coming in patch 2.1. which brings us to a total of, I think, 2.5, I forget. Not very many, though. And people are like, too many, need more, too small, need more, not enough. There's too much gear now, there's too many specialized gears. Like, there wasn't really that big of a stash issue in Diablo 3 Vanilla, because all gear was the same for all characters, for one thing. We didn't have plus skills and plus elemental damages, and there weren't that many good builds. And, of course, you get to buy replacement stuff in the auction house in 10 seconds anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now people are like, there's way too much. People that are transitioning from season 1 back to normal and then to season 2 are like, now I have 10 stash tabs worth of gear and 10 stash tabs on seashore selling seashells and 5 stash tabs to put them in, and I can't make them fit, and it's a problem. And my first wife used to tell me that a lot, of course. And neither of you guys did the seasons that much, but are you desperately in angst about a lack of anyway, we just had a vote last week, and 61% said it's way too small. This is like the biggest issue in the game. And 31% said it's too small, but it's not horribly critical. Which is, if you're doing math at home, that's 92% think the stash is way too small in Diablo 3. So, Neinball, is the stash too small in Diablo 3, and why are you wrong?
Yes, it is too small, because we have to have so many different sets of gear. You have maybe a couple pieces left over from leveling, and it's like, well, I want this set for my barbarian, I want to try out this set for my witch doctor, but then you have which set do I want? I have the Jade Harvesters, but then I also have another set for my pet build, and then I've got this one for messing around with, for doing some funny things with piranhas, and then you run out of room. And
they've got different skills on each of them. You need 3 different hats and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that's just the problem, is because you can't go and just find it in an auction house or trade for it. You have to keep every single thing that you find. And if you're playing hardcore, it's even worse, because then you normally want to try and keep 2 sets of everything that you find for when you inevitably lose it.
And NerdWords, you're playing softcore, so you don't care about EHP at all, and all your gear is just purely offensive. And you never need spare gear because you never die, you never lose anything. So do you think the stash is too small as well?
It is too small, but you're right, I actually don't think it, but not for those reasons. I literally play one character all the time. So I don't have
One character or one class or both?
one character and class, I guess, by definition. But
You could have 10 demon hunters, you know.
yeah,
You just
no,
you can play
I
wizard.
literally have one max level wizard, and I mean I've got a couple other classes I've leveled up, but just for achievements, not for anything other than just dabbling here and there. But yeah, like literally my wizard's all I ever play.
And how many stash tabs are you like? So if you had 3 stash tabs, would you be totally screwed?
Close. I mean, honestly, a lot of the gear that I keep, I probably don't even need to, but I don't run alts. I could see there being a problem if you're running even 2 characters pretty regularly. Like, keeping additional, like, you know, I've got different sets for different elements and different sets for different, like, scenarios and, like, whether I'm doing high torment or low torment or whatever. So, like, I can imagine having, you know, a Crusader and a Barbarian that you like running both and trying to keep sets for both. And then also trying to level characters and then keeping mats. And, yeah, it really starts to add up. But it could also be, fixed pretty easily with, like, personal stashes for each character on top of the stash you have.
So you basically think, like, 3 tabs is the absolute minimum for each class, is what it sounds like you're saying. If you're really into playing a class.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and there's 6 classes in the game and 5 tabs.
Yeah,
tabs
so yeah, you're starting to look at some pretty ridiculous amount of storage. But as just playing one class, 3 tabs is about. I could probably use a little bit more, but that's it for me. So using multiple classes, I couldn't even imagine.
I ran a vote like 3 weeks ago and asking, would you pay more money for minimum microtransactions? And like 80% of people were like, yes, I would pay. Like I think they all kind of like gritted their teeth when they clicked the yes button, because everybody hates microtransactions. At least we say we do. Like, obviously, there's games like Path of Exile that exist entirely because of them, and a Hearthstone apparently. But
well, that's like.
I mean, a strong majority of people were like, I would happily pay for this. Why isn't Blizzard doing it? They weren't even like microtransactions are evil. They were like, yes, once. So we've all been beaten down by microtransactions for years, or is it just that necessary?
I think the real money auction house broke Diablo fans because everyone was against it, and then look how successful it was, and now it's gone again. I feel like people just kind of backed off that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's just microtransactions are just more, acceptable within the gaming community because half of all the games that come out now, I want to say more so, but half all the games that come out now they're free to play, based entirely off of microtransactions, and then those ones that are not free to play still have some form of DLC or microtransaction or add-on or content that you can pay for, or expansion slots and stuff like that. It is a part of being a gamer now, and something that
it's a regular thing with console.
Yeah, not just console, PC games as well.
Well, I mean, whenever you look at if you turn your ad blocker off for 5 minutes, you'll find out about microtransactions, because every ad you see is play Viking Quest, and it's play for free. Even like on your torrent client or anything, there's always these ads for these free games. And of course, the joke is the free gamer is like the 6-year-old Japanese girl walking around with a butter knife, And then the paying unit is like a full Shogun warrior who comes in and chops you in half in 1/10 of a second. And Blizzard has largely resisted that. I guess Hearthstone's got a little bit of that if you buy a ton of card decks. But at least you have to play a bunch to get them. You can't just buy them all the first day and be good with them. But whereas the Diablo games and the World of Warcraft games, they've only sold like Sparkle Ponies. They haven't sold. I guess Diablo 3 Auction House could be a counter argument to that, right? But but generally, I mean, you're actually paying Blizzard. You don't just get to pay for awesome stuff. You've got to actually play and find it and earn it.
Right.
And obviously, buying more stash tabs wouldn't make you more awesome. I mean, it would make you more, you could more variety or something, right? But it's not like you're buying the best gear. Unlike, I guess the auction house was buying the best gear. You just weren't paying Blizzard directly, as far as we know. Wink, wink.
I feel like the microtransactions thing. I mean, like you said, people are desperate for stash. I mean, like I'm literally probably the only person that doesn't care because I'm good. But everybody else, that's all you hear about all the time. And I understand it. So I feel like people are just that desperate. It's like I'll pay money for it.
Is the stash an issue in World of Warcraft? Is storage space and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do they sell more?
Absolutely,
or what?
It's bad. No, they try to create a fix for that with void storage, and that filled up instantly with just about everybody. So hopefully, there's going to be more soon.
And one of the main selling points of the expansion pack of the Reaper of Souls was that you could get the digital deluxe version just because you got more character slots. Like people were buying that. I could see buying the real expansion. I mean, the real collector's edition, because you get the soundtrack and the book and the art book, and it's like a collector's thing. You have a big box on your wall, and if you went to the launch party, you got one for free, and it's all signed and stuff because shiny,
new special,
and you get to take pictures of the hover-handing cosplayers too, bonus points. But people were just paying $30 or $40 more for this game just to get more character slots, and not even stash tabs. So it just seems like maybe Blizzard just doesn't want to do microtransactions. They don't want to go there with the Diablo game, or they wanted to keep, even World of Warcraft apparently so much. But it seems like if there's a demand for it, it's crazy not to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're paying $5 to make your character stronger. You're just paying for more storage space. It's not
Yeah.
like you're totally cheating the game.
It's one of those benign forms of microtransactions. It doesn't have any in-game impact as to directly buffing your character or adding any power to it for paying. It's just I like collecting things, and so I'm going to pay money so I can collect things.
So why do you think they're not doing it yet?
Probably the reason why they don't do it in World of Warcraft is just database requirement or the database considerations. It eats up so much room on the servers that they are very careful and stingy about doing it, and that's the only thing that I can think of.
Given you can get a free email account with 50 terabytes of storage or whatever now, pretty much. I mean, obviously it's different in a video game than an email account. You have to access it constantly all over the world, right? But it just seems that I mean, I don't know. Maybe it seems to me like it's got to be more of an ethical or a strategic plan than it is. This is not viable economically in terms of $5 for another character slot that they can use forever.
Yeah.
I find him to believe they couldn't make money doing it if they wanted to.
Yep, I have no idea. That was just a very good question.
My only speculation would be that sometimes, especially with Diablo and WoW fans, that no matter what you give, they're always going to want more, and maybe that's kind of the mindset, but I'm not sure.
Well, you wouldn't. You're happy with what you have. You're the one player. You're the one wizard.
Yeah, and I really like Diablo 3. It's weird, I know.
So, two other topics. Well, I'll just skip the Greater Rifts thing because no one cares, right? No one's ever going to play Greater Rifts. They're just a minor feature. Are we gonna? Any of you guys have any last topics? Because mine is kind of a wrap it up thing. It's about BlizzCon. So, any of you guys have any game topics or issues you want to get into?
No, not really. I think that's about it. They need to add in a seasonal legendary that makes it you have a melee demon hunter. That's about it.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah. Think of it that you can make a quiver, which is like a knife bandolier, and so it increases. You can use it with a melee weapon. It increases your attack speed.
Just fix Hydra and give me the Firebird set. That's all I want.
All right, there you go.
You already have the Firebird set, just on the PTR.
Yeah, no, it was on the PTR, and I stopped. I was done. I was like, nope, I'm gonna get the whole set, and I'm gonna get so mad because it's not gonna drop for me for like 3 months in seasons. So I'm just gonna go back to live and play my little dinky whiz dog.
Okay, so last question. BlizzCon's coming up, and not until November this year. I was wondering when that was, actually, and just checked it. It's like November 7th and 8th, or 8th and 9th, or something, which seems later than usual. It was in August a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. But are we going to see the next Diablo 3 expansion announced at BlizzCon? Neinball, yes or no? Or it might be before then, for all we know.
I want to say maybe.
And that's not allowed. Yes or no?
Let's just go with
yes, no, or before then. 'Cause if you have three
hold on,
answers.
wait. I got a coin here. Hold on.
You got a three-sided coin when you Dungeons and
There
Dragons?
we go. All right. Yes. Coin says yes. It was heads.
What do you think, Nerdwords?
I am a hopeful yes, but that would be really fast for them for Diablo.
Well, we know they were planning on 18 months, and that's what they keep trying to get to with World of Warcraft is 18 months. They never quite make it. It's always like 20 or 22.
Mm-hmm.
But you realize that Reaper of Souls was only like 22 months, right? Even with all the delays.
Yeah, but that was
Diablo
still
3 launch.
closer to 2 years than 1.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to be released at BlizzCon, but
Yeah, but it's just the announcement of it.
they announce games, what, 12, 14 months and 16 months in advance? Expansion packs, I mean, usually? 8, 10, 12, 14?
It depends on the game.
Oh. With World of Warcraft, normally, I mean, they announce the next expansion. In the past they've announced the next expansion, just 8 to 11 months after the first expansion, after the expansion itself came out. So
Yeah.
they've got the announcements, even a year, less than a year.
And when did Reaper of Souls come out, Neinball?
It came out in
When
March.
was Reaper of Souls came out in March, and how many months after March is November?
That is, oh god, you're making me do
It's
math.
9.
9?
It's 9.
9?
So that's
Or, well,
that's
8,
pretty much
technically.
right on their time scale then, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. There wouldn't be any if this was World of Warcraft. There would not be any shock to it. You know that because at the next BlizzCon, they're just going to announce the next expansion. So I wouldn't be surprised. It does seem a little bit sooner with how long that they went from the Reaper of Souls announcement from the Diablo launch. But then again, they seem to be really picking up the production pace with what we've seen. Who knows? We might.
They've come out and said that Diablo 3 required a lot more patching and urgent work in the months after release than they planned on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole Paragon system came out after the launch and everything, and just the game itself was not where they wanted it to be, and fans were very unhappy in the early days, which seems like that probably delayed the expansion 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they announced the expansion, I think, at Gamescom, right? Which was
Yep.
which was like August of the next year, so that was like 14 months after launch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they certainly didn't want to wait that long. We know they want to do their expansions in 18 months, or 24 at the most. So I will be very surprised if we don't see Blizz. I mean, if they don't do it at BlizzCon, what are they going to announce it in fact January or February or something? What happens then?
I mean, they could just do the same thing. There was actually a pretty quick turnaround time from announcement to launch. They could just announce it at BlizzCon or Gamescom next year, and then have it out in 2016. Yeah.
See, again, though, I'm hopeful, but we have to factor in the fact that I feel like a StarCraft expansion is going to come next, and I don't feel like they're going to announce a StarCraft expansion and a Diablo expansion at BlizzCon.
I don't know if StarCraft even counts because they announced the expansions before the first game even came out.
We know that
they had the whole
we
split
do,
the free thing.
we do,
Yeah.
but Blizzard times their releases very, very carefully. And I mean, you've got Heroes coming out. You have, I mean, obviously we don't have a release date yet, but we've got Heroes coming out. You've got StarCraft that's due for its final expansion for the Protoss expansion, and then you've got Diablo 3, which has an inevitable expansion, hopefully, but we don't know anything about that yet. So I don't know. I'm hopeful, but I'm scared if I say yes, it's going to delay it even further.
Yeah, last year they did spread it out because they had Hearthstone at PAX, Reaper at Gamescom, and then Heroes at BlizzCon.
Right.
But they did, they announced Heroes alongside Warlords of Draenor.
But we knew about Heroes before then, though. I mean, they've been working on it publicly forever. They just announced the name.
Yeah, well, and they also kind of went and showed that it was going to be a standalone game instead of just a add-on to StarCraft.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll actually be at BlizzCon for the first time ever this year. I'm super excited about that.
Congratulations.
I've tried for 6 years to get into BlizzCon. And it took 5 computers, but I got it.
And you finally got it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yep.
And you're planning ahead. Are you going to go to BlizzCon Neinball? Are you pretty certain?
Yeah. The
I don't know,
only thing that I have yet to do, I still need to buy my plane ticket, but that's about it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, any final thoughts, guys? We're rambling off here at the end. There's a lot of Blizzard games out now. I mean, obviously, you just gave the whole list of all of them. The Hearts of the Draenor Storm and everything else, and the StarCraft's not forever coming out, and obviously Diablo 3 is making massive patch changes if 2.1 ever goes live.
Mm-hmm. They just started a whole new hiring initiative. They kind of redesigned their whole jobs website. They're now giving incentives for employees to refer new hires and stuff like that. So it looks like they're about to ramp up and doing more production. They've got another unannounced game project that they're hiring for. So I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what that is, though, don't we? We shouldn't say it, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the one that we know. We know Jay Wilson's leading a project.
Yeah.
He's a project manager on an unannounced title, and it's not going to be World of Warcraft 2 or Titan and he was on RTSs before he got there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be StarCraft 3. And are there any other RTSs Blizzard's making? Probably not. No, there's no history of other RTSs at Blizzard.
No, they've never done any other.
Yeah,
so who knows what it could be? It could be anything. Wouldn't have a 4 in the name or anything like that. But no, none of that. We don't know anything about that.
It's StarCraft Ghost.
Yeah, it's the ghost with the
They're
most.
bringing it back.
You've been listening to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at DiabloInkGamers.com, and you can see us in game or possibly not. Moo.
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 Moo. Moo. Moo. Moo. Moo.
Have either of you guys gotten the Greeds level on PTR?
Yes, I actually grinded it till I got it. I literally, that's the first thing I did on PTR. When I hit 70, I just grinded it.
What did you grind? You just played until you found
Halls
the
of
right
Agony
goblin?
level 2. There's a guaranteed goblin spawn in Halls of Agony level 2. Just run it at whatever highest torment you possibly can and kill that goblin. Usually it's about 1 in 15 to 20, I've noticed.
1 in 15 to 20 goblins, or you get a goblin every 15 to 20 games?
No, one. No, there's a goblin every single game. It's guaranteed on Halls of Agony level 2 in Act 1.
And sometimes he'll do happy things.
Yeah, sometimes. It's really cool. It felt very... Have you guys seen the Hobbit movies that have come out?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay, it looked like Greed was the Goblin King from the Hobbit movie. It's literally almost identical.
He had balls hanging off his chin?
Ish. I mean, ish. It was very, very like that. Even the color scheme felt very, very much like that. It was really cool. I liked it.
Yep. And
Well,
isn't... Isn't it a she?
Yeah, sorry,
Yes.
princess. Yeah, sorry.
Greed, the Baroness.
Baroness.
Yeah, that's right.
She's dead sexy.
Yeah, but yeah, I got
She ate
it.
it.
I got it once and moved on.
Yeah, well, you don't want to get it for real. That was 87 million gold you won't have in the real game. So
When I did it on I did it on I want to say it was like normal because I was I was like fresh level 70 season character, like Paragon, like maybe 5 or 6. So I was like just speed running through stuff, and I found that teleport wand, and I was doing this ridiculous build where I was just warping and calamitying everything and wiping it out, and then I got it doing it on normal. So I got I think it was like 13 or 14 million gold. It was still nice, but it wasn't like it was a good head start on seasons though.
okay, guys, thanks for your time.